This is not a video that I want to make. It's a video that I knew eventually I probably would have to make. Um, the title's probably a little bit scary. I don't really know what I'm going to title this. I don't have a plan for any of this. No, the campaign is not ending. The campaign is currently, if you've heard from my players, at times they can't see the battle maps. I am currently plagued by technical issues. So this is more of a campaign information update, a explanation of the technical ongoings and solutions that I'm putting in place to fix them, hopefully. I don't know. We kind of test as we go. And then a recap of Session 7. Real quick, off the bat, Session 7 was fantastic. I enjoyed the heck out of it. I think the players enjoyed the heck out of it. It suffered the thing that I knew was looming, a technical issue that I did not catch. You probably see me resizing the players sometimes when they drop out of a call, or drop out of the group video call or something like that. I'm always shifting them in the overlay and making everybody look as centered as they can be. As the DM, world creator, story writer, technical guy, overlay worker, OBS worker, because this is built like a stream, although I don't stream it. It's structured like a stream. We had a technical issue that I did not catch in the fact that the only microphone that is heard and the only audio that is heard for the entire session in the recording is this one. Which really bums the heck out of me. It bothers me. I knew that this was going to happen at some point. I knew we were going to have a technical issue that I wouldn't catch. And the unfortunate thing is once it's recorded and done, it's recorded and done, and there's not much I can do about it. The good news is we had a fantastic session, and that's at the core what I care about, is running a fantastic game for my friends. That is the focus. I've always posted these videos to YouTube thinking if one person watches it and starts playing D&D or wants to run D&D for their friends, or if I show somebody that you don't need Roll20 or Theater of Mind in order to accomplish what you want and show your players what you want, if you want to show off minis and battle maps and still have that tactical tabletop experience, you can have it remotely with the people that you want to play the game with. It is challenging. It is challenging, I can tell you. As the game runner, you have to be the wearer of all the hats that I described earlier. Technical guy. If you're running a module, you're running a module. If you're not, you're creating your world, you're story writing, you're caring about each of the characters, where their stories are going, trying to keep it contiguous, trying to deal with the rise and lowers in tension. On the technical side of things, what am I going to do? So the players in the previous session in Session 6, which you can, of course, go and watch, in the encounter when the creatures were crawling down the cliffside, they were completely unable to see the map, and if you read my Imgur Gallery in the description of that session, you see me say something to the effect of, my players were saying that they couldn't see, that the video quality was bad. That is apparently a systemic issue that I hopefully have something in the cards to fix. I have whipped up a solution that I have to test. I have to do a technical test with the players. But it's very important to me that any technical issues that we have not delay the game too much and not take away. So you saw me say, screw it, Theater of Mind. That's also what I had to do for Session 7. There is a systemic video quality issue for my players that makes them unable to see, basically anything. They've sent me screenshots. It's quite horrendous. So that is one of the hurdles that I am trying to tackle from a campaign standpoint and from a show running standpoint as a technical guy. Session 7's audio is completely lost. It will be linked in the description of this video. It's pretty unwatchable because it's just me. If you want to hear what some of the NPCs say at certain moments, because I'm about to recap the session in a short while, once I think I've covered all the technicals, which I really think that's about it. If you want to hear what the NPCs actually say rather than me paraphrasing the entire session, because I'm going to try to keep this relatively short, even though I'm already 5 minutes long, you can watch it, but it's pretty unwatchable. And I apologize. I knew this was going to happen at one point. The shame is you know, I know where the story's going, or I have a pretty good idea of where I think the story's going. And I say Session 7 is our best session yet. It's the one that matters the most. It's the one, you know, I guess aside from the first session, it's the one that matters the most. It's the one that hopefully matters the most to the characters, and by and large, hopefully matters the most to the player characters as they really dive into Weltergrove and discover the larger world that they've been kind of secluded from. Political machinations are moving. They're learning about deities in the world. They're learning more about some of the pressures from their various zero sessions. It's Session 7. Like I said, I ran a great game for my friends, and I couldn't be happier. The shame is I can't share it with you guys in a proper manner. At the end of the day, I shrug and say, well, I have to move on. So I think that's all the technical stuff. Pretty sure. And I'm going to go ahead and recap the session as best I can. It might be a little loosey-goosey, but I'll try my best. As it had been 3.5, 4 weeks between the players playing last, I had quite the lengthy intro that I basically read to them, and I'll do so now to kind of kick us off. Last we scribed, our menagerie of individuals just recovered from a lengthy fight with a returned foe. Upon assessing the status of the town and speaking with both Genfiel and Fenrin, it was determined that they, rather than the Imgur Grove, were the targets. Returning to the full weave, each of you began to pitch ideas about what was crucial to uncover next. There is the immediate threat of an entity called the Depth Chieftain, as well as some of you sharing a connection in your past, Gardak having in past times clashed with agents prescribed the name the Cloaked Serpent, their gear and composition matching that of assailants that Rox and Drusk had encountered, assailants responsible for Rox's displacement. After discussing things with Genfiel, you decided to seek guidance in Weltergrove, and made preparations to leave the Imgur Grove behind. Maslin managed to have a moment alone with Genfiel and asked him questions regarding the prime site in the Empress's palm, Vezrin Elkas, particularly to ask if he was dangerous, and to confide his trust in Genfiel. Shortly before your departure to Weltergrove, Fenrin came running to Genfiel in a panic, expressing that although he hadn't tried in quite some time, he was devastated at the revelation that he could not communicate with the Kaya tree, a tree in the center of the Storax Holt, located near Weltergrove. Setting out into the Triplefall Expanse, you journeyed for a number of days. I lost my spot. The night prior to your arrival in Weltergrove, you were beset upon by creatures descending from the cliffside. A lengthy fight ensued, but you managed to best the foes and complete your journey to Weltergrove. Now, you stand assessing the outside view of the town. A cold fog rolls forward, buffeting the cart as it does so, each of you getting a light chill as the scent of the cold morning air filled with moisture from the snow of the mountains which loom large over the recess of sparsely packed low buildings. You see small steeples and towers, but nothing more. Most of the buildings are humble in their height. The Savamark Road, the road you journeyed on, continues straight into the dead center of this town. And as you press in amongst the fog, you can now see vertically up the mountains as you pull in. Where all of the mountains are large, amongst the center you can see a collection of mountains like spires reaching for the stars, which pierce through the now dawning blue of the sky, the three peaks, each seemingly getting taller and taller as they distance further and further away from Weltergrove. Pulling in on your cart, passing a few small hovels and simple homes, you see a small squat building with white drapery adorning the window and the door, flowing and folding in the wind. A humble sign adorns its front, and a familiar visage to you, Gardak. This is labeled the Folded Cloth. As you all dismount from the cart and hitch the horses, a small, happy, wrinkled, but charming, human female with brown hair, simple braids that come around the front, exits out the door, kind of taking you all in. And with hands folded in front of her, she just smiles warmly. The party ends up meeting the woman who runs the folded cloth, which I just described, named Shayla Ludove. She runs the folded cloth, which is no more than a simple, small inn. Weltergrove, I explained to them, is a town that doesn't receive a large bevy of visitors. Most people who make their journey through the perils of the Triplefall Expanse do so very specifically on a deific pursuit, to go and commune with one of these gods at these temples, or otherwise just seek meaning in their life. The inn is small and sparse, but does provide bedding, and she is willing to take care of their horses as well, for a small tithe. They discuss the various temples in the town, most of which they're, as a group, aware of. There are temples that I ran through with them. There is a temple to the Lawbearer, Arathis, named the Watcher's Vigilance. There is a temple to the Knowing Mistress, Ayun, named the Mind's Edge, as well as another temple for the Wild Mother. Or, I'm sorry, not a temple. There is the Storax Holt, which is a small grove sequestered, much like the one that they saw in the Imgur Grove. The Storax Holt is a grove that is sequestered, and within the Kaya tree, supposedly, according to Fenrir. There is as well a temple for the Arkheart, Corellum, named Sahandrian's Legacy, and one for the Moonweaver, which seems dormant, and the main cause of them coming here, named the Luminous Levant. There is, as well, they passed a small shrine, nothing more than a small shrine for the Everlight, Sarenrae. They discussed amongst themselves who or where they might seek guidance from, and ended up determining that they were going to split. If I recall entirely correctly, Rox and Drusk, as well as Draku, went to the Storax Holt, which is the grove of the Wild Mother, while Maslin, Zessarin, and Gardak went to the Mind's Edge for the Knowing Mistress, Ayun. I kind of handled them, obviously, separately. Drusk, Rox, and Draku find their way to the Storax Holt, not anything too crazy. And within the center, they do end up finding, as the Storax Holt comes to a center, they find what they believe to be the Kaya tree. This tree is in the center of the Storax Holt and has gray bark, and there are segments where bark are missing, revealing a purple wood underneath, with curling and writhing etchings that seem to pierce deep into the wood. Upon the branches, you can see the wilted bulbs of flowers. Although truly off-color now, you can assume that they were once white flowers. The Storax Holt, based on what they were looking at, is dying. The tree, the Kaya tree, seems lifeless, as I just described. And as the Storax Holt grows presses in close to the Kaya tree, the foliage, various vines and wrappings are also seemingly wilted, dying in a sense. They end up spotting a female drow, Prime Dominie Eknis Senari, who ends up meeting them and regarding them strangely. She does not move nor open her eyes, locked in meditation, kind of like Fenrir does. She is very dismissive, informs Drusk that there is nothing for him here, and gives a confusing timeline, whereas Gardak had recounted that about 20 years ago, he fought agents of the Cloaked Serpent in Weltergrove. Now, she refers to it as though it was only weeks ago. Through talking amongst themselves, they all more or less come to realize time has been distorted for her, for reasons they can't quite discern. They do notice, as Drusk tries to press in closer to Eknis, they end up noticing a number of what seemed to be just trees, but now seemed like guardians. These guardians flanked Drusk, and he tried to communicate with them in Druidic. It did not appear successful. They regarded him as he provided a flower using Druidcraft. But overall, very quiet, silent watchers. Eknis, on their way out, regarded them just long enough to let them know that those guardians had sacrificed their lives to the Storax Holt in service of the Wild Mother. We go now to the other group who went to the Mind's Edge, the temple of the Knowing Mistress, Ioun. Within, they end up meeting a man, male halfling, Jason Petley. He kind of has a toothy grin. He kind of regards them very friendly, welcomes them in, asks what they're here for. Jason is wearing a tunic that is adorned with all manner of trinkets, small, not bells, but small gems, small accoutrements. Just he's basically a walking jingle bell. He's very loud in his step as he kind of hustles through. He ends up calling out to a woman, Ashira Joro. Ashira Joro, by all appearances, being the prime dominee of the Knowing Mistress, or the Mind's Edge. Maslin approaches and, at first, seeks information in general about the Knowing Mistress Ioun. However, she immediately pauses him for a moment as she recognizes and calls out to Zessarin, referring to him as Eluin. She approaches him and recounts that the last time she saw him, he was not but a small baby, being brought through by Faust, which is Zessarin's apparent grandfather. Ashira remarks that she was always very fond of Faust's mind. He came seeking knowledge at the Mind's Edge many times, and often tore his mind asunder through incantations and required multiple days of recovery in the Mind's Edge. He sought what she presumed to be a hidden, lost, or maybe even forbidden knowledge. Ashira probed many times regarding Faust's efforts, which seemed like he merely wanted to work himself to death, but he never answered and confided in her what it was that he was searching for. All of her inquiries, she remarked to the Knowing Mistress herself, led to a discouragement in responses. Upon learning from Zessarin that Faust seemingly was not out on another one of his journeys, but rather was never coming back, she offered to Zessarin to reach out to a source of knowledge, remarked that it was dangerous, and that she may find what he seeks, or she may not. She regarded in him and asked if he had any specific questions for whatever entity this might be. Zessarin seemingly did not. She began an incantation that drew Jason close. He seemed concerned for Ashira and ready to respond. It was very clear just amongst the air in the room that this ritual had been performed before, this incantation had been performed before, and it was not a safe one regarding the mind. Ashira reached out, and she began to beseech this ancient entity, which she described as older than the Knowing Mistress herself. She asked about Faust. He traveled to Elm Nest often. Was this where he stayed during his sojourns and his journeys? And seemed to receive an affirmative response. She asked what it was that he sought in Elm's Nest, and she seemed to receive a negative response. She asked when he ventured out to seek what he was looking for, was he utterly alone, and received a seemingly positive response. She quieted for a moment, and then asked if Faust was alive, and if Faust was safe. Upon completing the incantation, kind of collecting herself, she regarded Zessarin, and informed him that she once paid someone to follow him and report back to her. When he wasn't here pilfering the archives, he stayed in Elm's Nest. That's how she knew. All those times when he left Zessarin, he was alone every time, guideless, but determined. She apologizes to Zessarin, as she has learned that he is in the gravest of dangers. She quiets for a few moments, and then confesses that she loved Faust once. She watched him tear his mind apart inexplicably, never explaining himself or anything he was doing. She did love him and care for him as an individual, romantically. But he, as an elf, is timeless, where she, as a human, is doomed to die before he even ages seemingly a day. She confesses to Zesrin, were things different, she maybe could have been a mother figure to him. She kind of collects herself and informs him that it doesn't do well to dwell on what could have been. The knowing mistress suggests we focus on what is. She regards Zesrin well and wishes him to find all the answers that he seeks. Maslin, after watching Ashira kind of collect herself and taking a few moments to let her coalesce back together, approaches Ashira and produces a small grayscale stone out of a pocket deep in his sleeve. He produces what I referred to in the game as the Zinar stone, and asks Ashira if it's still of use to him on his journey. She performs a few incantations looking at it. This stone I compared to Zesrin and Maslin's diamonds that they use to cast Chromatic Orb, focusing the light through and using the spell. That is a prism that casts light and warps it and gives it multi-colors as it hits the walls. This, instead, when the light passes through this stone, it becomes grayscale and casts it along the walls. Not rainbows, shades of gray. She completes a few incantations and says that although the stone is currently inert, it is not of use. It is not useless. She also looks Maslin up and down, and Ashira, seemingly this entire time, did not have great eyesight, but she focuses in for a singular moment. Regards Maslin, looks at his dress, looks at his figure, and advises him to do better to hide the armband that he is wearing. She is aware of incursions by his kind, or people that he's from, and although she's not upset with him, she just encourages a little bit more of a clandestine approach. With that, they all leave the temple of the Knowing Mistress. Gardak, glancing around, does see a temple that he has visited before, the Watcher's Vigilance, a temple of the Lawbearer, Arathis. Gardak, wandering in, sees a multi-tiered temple, each with various shields and weaponry, some ancient, seemingly. As she approaches, or as Gardak, I'm gonna get that wrong every time. As Gardak approaches the top tier of this multi-tiered temple, a black dragonborn male approaches and regards Gardak. This is Prime Dominie Periel Amadi. Kind of humble in his strife. He's dressed in kind of half plate. Regards Gardak, asks what brings him back, and as Gardak confides that it seems to be a reincursion of the Cloaked Serpent, he calls out to a side room for Dacus Greatwalker, which is a Dominie of the Watcher's Vigilance as well. This is a Minotaur male, dressed in full plate. Dacus confesses, or informs Gardak, I don't know why I said confesses, informs Gardak that the Luminous Levant seems to be, which is the Temple of the Moonweaver, seems to be active again. He's kind of watched over the place in the intervening years, and it seems over the course of the past year there's been digging of some form, some excavation. Periel Amadi, the Prime Dominie, after dismissing Dacus, asks Gardak, why do I still have this going? What am I doing? I have the wrong music up right now. Doesn't matter. Asks Gardak how Commander Vakken fares these days. Gardak confesses he hasn't spoken to Vakken in quite some time. However, seems to be overall in a good condition, maybe. Periel regards Gardak in the sense that Vakken left something behind should the Prime Guard ever return, and he thinks now it could be of use to Gardak, and provides Gardak with a Sowite augment, another augment for his Prime Guard shield. The party, coming back together, they come back together in the folded cloth, discuss everything that has transpired, some of the things that they have learned. Zessarin doesn't exactly speak out about what he has learned, but everybody was mostly in earshot. They all reconvene in the folded cloth and discuss going to the Luminous Levenant to see what, if anything, might be going on, if the agents of the Cloaked Serpent have returned. As they all get ready to depart, they do stop by Sahandrian's Legacy, which is the last temple that they had not visited. This is the temple for the Archart, Corellon. Within, they find notes. Within, they find a collection of statues. I had them roll some basic religion and history checks. These are statues of the Seldarine, the Brotherhood and Sisterhood of Elves. Among them, many of them, Corellon himself, as well as different elven goddesses from times past. The Interloper Goddess, the first of the half-elves, the god of swordsmanship and blade singers, which is also the son of Corellon and Sehanine, the god of time, history, and knowledge, romantic love, beauty and joy, abundance, gardens, and the harvest. They see, as they pass all of these statues, collected at the front is a statue of Corellon himself and Sehanine Moonbow, the Moonweaver. They are consorts together, lovers. As they approach this center of the two statues, from some of the statues that they just walked past, they see a male Asimar emerge, and he regards the whole group. Kind of tightly bundled black hair and a series of braids with topaz, gold, yellow skin, and purple markings and tattoos which frame the eyes on each side and drawing down the cheeks in a singular line. He introduces himself as Fovo Osser, the prime dominie of Sahandrian's Legacy, the temple of the Archart, Corellon. They ask, as Fovo seems at odds with the rest of the prime dominie within Weltergrove. He regards most of the prime dominie in the sense that the party begins to ask him, about the Storax Holt, about the dissolution of Arcanum, and he generally regards that Ashira Joro of the Mind's Edge doesn't really take much basis in the dissolution of Arcanum, although Fovo Osser himself really believes that it is coming back around. Describes, in a sense, that each time it cycles, the deities lose their grip on the world. They ask about the Storax Holt and about Prime Dominie Eknes. He also confides in them that she, an elf, Drow, has transitioned from deity to deity as time has gone on. Sehanine, the Moonweaver, Maslin confesses, has fallen silent in the past 60 years. As was the attack 20 years ago on Weltergrove by the Cloaked Serpent's agents that Gardak bested. Over time, it seems there has been a decline of the Moonweaver's presence, which drove Maslin's people to the Knowing Mistress for answers. Within this conversation, they learn that Prime Dominie kind of transitions from religion to religion, or deity to deity, temple to temple, as the Moonweaver slowly descends. Now she is with the Wild Mother in the Grove, the last bastion, the Kaya Tree. They uncover that the Kaya Tree recounts history before the Enfix Kith transitioned to the Worq and getting Moor's Wayfinders in. The trials and the proving. She remembers some old stories, as she was always always pestering Turs and Care for more answers and more information. The Kaya tree is said to have been gifted to the Wild Mother by the Moonweaver multiple millennia ago after the victory of the Seldarine over Kronazir and the ascension of the Wild Mother into godhood. Fovo Aser regards Eknis that she is there as the last bastion of the Moonweaver, the Kaya tree, which is dying, and posits that if or when that tree dies, she'll move on to another deity. Overall, they learned that the Arkheart, Corellon, the reason why Fovo is at odds with the other deities is the Arkheart is also falling silent over time, seemingly in grief, as he and the Moonweaver are lovers. The Moonweaver seemingly wounded, incapacitated. Either way, it's a very rare occurrence, obviously, for a deity to stop reaching out to the world. They all resolve to go to the Luminous Levenant, and they find amongst them, as Gardak leads along a familiar path that he tread 20 years ago, to a small, beaten-down wooden shack. Drusk decides to wild shape into a lizard and scout through the trees, or scout through the grass. He climbs upon the shack and finds within molded, rustic wood falling apart. The shack is in entire disrepair. Nothing of very much interest occurs. The rest of the party from the tree line does see a singular bird. After some decent rolls, I recounted to them that this seems to be some form of predator bird that may have descended from the mountains, where the area is more tough. Drusk, in lizard form, attempts to make his way back to the party, but this bird begins a nosedive straight for Drusk. Draku, Zessarin, and Maslin all fire off attacks with 120-foot range. Drusk ends up still getting hit, comes out of wild shape. I think takes some additional damage, I'm not quite sure. And overall, they kill this bird before it has a chance to do anything, as it was just looking predatorily, and it was not expecting a full-on lizard man to pop out of a lizard. They make their way into the Luminous Levant, and within, they find a very abandoned temple. Amongst their searches, they find really nothing of repute, as both nature and various animals and predators, probably looters, have stripped the temple of anything worth of value. They do find a singular pathway ahead, a unnatural carving into the wall, a tunnel that bores down and in. They come to kind of a central area with various different raisings and lowerings of height. This looks like a gathering place of some form. And before them lies a hallway. This hallway, as they begin to go down, they begin cautiously, Drusk having a flame blade up for light. As they move through, they end up tripping a few things. As they move through, the entire party is suddenly shrouded in darkness. Then, as Zessarin kind of takes the lead and attempts to tap the ground like a blind man, he ends up tapping, and then silence. And as they kind of progress through the next zone, they can all speak and hear themselves again. Maslin decides to cast Detect Magic, seeing all the tomfoolery that's going on. And rightly so, for he sees a sigil. And after rolling decently enough on a check, it is the same sigil that he knows he could one day draw to cast Thunderwave. He points this out to the group, and the group attempts to jump over, everybody having a strength score enough to jump over except for Zessarin, who does not roll well enough on his acrobatics check, and ends up hitting the sigil. A large thunderous crack booms out, knocking some of the party prone. And amongst the end of the hall, they see a collection of stone guardians emerge, seemingly triggered by this thunderous boom. These stone guardians stand together, forming almost a wall. Each of them lidless, no face, no features, standard humanoid form. But they each have large plates of stone on their forearms, which seem like shields. A crazy, quite frankly, fight ensues. The party just simply powers through, dealing a crap load of damage and a combat that lasted a long time. These stone guardians worked together, blocking each other, kind of boosting each other as they formed this wall, attempting to push them down the hallway. The party not having it, funnily enough, and not willingly retreating either to lead them back into the larger chamber. These stone guardians drive their forearms into the ground at times and charge through a few of them, knocking them all prone, doing some hefty damage. But they power through and best the two forms. As they kind of gather themselves and look around at all the sigils and everything else that's going on in this hallway, that is where I ended the session. So, it really chaps me that we didn't have a recording for it. I really do think, from a character standpoint, it was one of the most important sessions. There will be an Imgur Gallery that I will link, describing, as I always do, my intentions for the combat encounter, my thoughts on how the session went, everything else. The real shame is you guys won't get to see it in its full form. Again, I'll link the session in the description because I have uploaded it. It's pretty unwatchable. It's literally just my mic. It's like this right here. Yeah, it's unfortunate, but like I said, we had a great session. I had a great session for my players. And at the end of the day, that's the main thing that I care about. These technical issues, I hope I'll resolve them. I had better resolve them. I don't know. The campaign is not ending. Not by a long shot. We are just currently plagued with stuff. I guess since I have the opportunity, this would be a good opportunity to plug anything else that I'm doing. I do have a friend who's running a campaign. We're planning on streaming it. It's a show that we're starting called Friday Night Dice. We're going to be playing this Friday, June 12th, on their Twitch channel, which I'll link in the description. You can follow them on Twitter. There'll be a link in the description as well to join the Discord. It really is something that I've spent a lot of time on. Matt and I have built a hell of a studio. It has been no small effort, and it really is. Matt's created an awesome world. He's gathered a great cast of really players who are invested. Yeah, this has gone on long enough, but anyway, I would love to see you tune in if you do. And yeah, this campaign is not ending. It's just having technical problems, and this video took way too long, but as always, thank you for any singular second you spend watching our stupid, silly antics while we play Dungeons & Dragons and explore this crazy, wild world that I never thought I'd create. Okay. Take care, guys, and hopefully everything will be resolved, and we'll see you for Session 8.